Good evening, church. It's me again with one of my humble home productions. I've been studying with you through Matthew 4, hopefully these past couple of weeks, and I had a simple diagram that I did. I jotted down some of the things I learned, really to do with this quote from Isaiah that David spoke on Sunday in his YouTube video. Where it talks about how the people living in darkness have seen a great light, and on them a light has dawned. And I thought that this idea of light and kingdom needed a bit of extra work, and for at least from me. And I thought I'd share some of the things I learned. It's not everything on the subject, but I would hope that I hope it encourages you somehow. It's just good for me to share also. And I'd love to hear back from you what you've been hearing. So let me show you the little diagram, and I'll try and talk you through it. Well, first off, as we said, a light has dawned. This was referring to Jesus' ministry up in Galilee. The dawning of a light really refers to the beginning of a day, right? A new reality is come upon the world, and it has to do with, I think, the kingdom, the coming kingdom of Jesus. Now, in order to get this idea of light and darkness, I went to Acts 26:18, where Paul is describing to Agrippa how he is being used to help people. It's God's plan to move people from darkness to light, from the power of Satan to God. Now he parallels those two things, the darkness being under the power of Satan, that's our default position, and light being with God, and that's where people are to, when they hear the gospel, they are to turn. But what interested me was this idea of the power of Satan. What does it mean, the power of Satan? How are we all under his power, as even 1 John 5 describes? What is the extent of his power? Can the devil defy God and bring about an end that God hasn't desired? Can he drag us to hell? Can he ruin our life despite God's promises to care for us? What is the extent of his power? Well, I think, as you'll see, that none of those things are the case. The devil operates, he has the power of death, according to Hebrews 2, 14 to 15. And he exerts this influence over us through the fear of death. And I think if you've been anyway observant lately, even the empty shelves in the supermarket, you'll see how the fear of death really is a motivator. And so as we consider that the devil uses this, how is it that he has the power over death? And I think for that we need to first look at the idea that he is called Satan. He can be described as the accuser or the adversary. It's the translation of the word Satan. Accuser will bring an accusation against someone, obviously, and so the devil accuses us of sin. He really depends upon God's justice and our guilt to have any power at all. He will accuse us, and then he will claim us for his kingdom. He will say, God, look, those are sinners, and they belong with me and my fate. And in so doing, he doesn't really have any power of his own, Satan, that is outside of God. He relies on God's justice, God's rule, and our weakness, our guilt. Since in John 14, Jesus says that the evil one is coming, but he has no claim on me, because Jesus didn't have any guilt. And so he says that the devil didn't have any claim on him. And so the devil claims us for his kingdom of darkness. And the sad reality is that when this time of grace is over, that we will go out, those in his kingdom will go out into outer darkness, where there is gnashing of teeth. It's a terrifying description of hell, the sort of place where such darkness, such isolation, that doesn't bear thinking about. Well, that's the bad news, you could say. The other side is really to do with how God brings us into light. And Paul describes this very well for us in the very similar terms in Colossians. First of all, Colossians 2, and then later Colossians 1. In Colossians 2, Paul says that Jesus cancelled the record of guilt against us by nailing it to the cross. Jesus took our sin and paid the penalty. God can legally let us go. And Paul even goes on to say he disarmed the rulers and authorities. It's in reference to Satan and his angels. Because what he's saying is that there is no accusation that can be leveled against us. As Romans 9 says that who can bring a charge against us? God has justified us. He can't claim us for himself, therefore, and we have therefore no fear of death. No fear of death. The devil is disarmed because our guilt has been taken away. And putting this just into the terms of light and kingdom, in Colossians 1, just before the previous passage, Paul says that God delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of his Son to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. So Jesus, the light, comes down bringing light. He's come to deal with man's guilt, to satisfy God's justice, so that we can be with him in light forever. Hopefully that's helpful.